Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. So good to be spending this Monday, probably your Sunday, with you. And I've got a special guest on the show, and you are going to really get a lot out of today's show. So sit tight, find yourself a good cup of something hot or otherwise, and settle in, because John Henny is a man that is going to, just educate us. And specifically today, we're going to be talking acoustics, tone, resonance, and it's going to be so good to have John join us in a moment. Before we do, and I'll make this quick, I did want to just remind all of you that the new course, Dr. Dan Singer's Starting Guide, goes live. It's scheduled to go live next Monday, the 4th of April, but I'm hoping that I might even get it live before then. Regardless, there is a $50 saving that you can grab before the end of the 3rd of April, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And so that I'll leave that special until the end of this week. But we've done it again. This is the 4th course, and each time we have met the deadline, which is this one had me a little bit concerned. But over the last week, I have been putting up all the infographics, the e-booklets, to the point where I've already, I'm not going to change the price of one night, the recommended retail, but I started to wonder, have I underpriced this? Because there is a lot of information in this new course. So anyway, some of you have already grabbed your pre-launch special. And so if you want to do that, you've got another week. And as I said, we may even be able to go live with the course before then. One other thing, we've got one more show for next week for a Q&A. We do these shows every Monday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. But then we won't have another show after next week until the 9th of May. Now, the reason for that is because here in Australia, the land of the public weekend, the public holiday weekend, we have got 3 public holidays in a row, all on a Monday, believe it or not. So therefore, I won't be with you for what works out to be, when I include my week off, 4 weeks. So it means, anyway, I'll remind you again next week. The best way for you to always remember is to subscribe to the channel, hit the white bell icon, and that way, whenever we do go live, you'll receive a notification from YouTube. Enough of the housekeeping, because I am super excited to introduce you to our guest, John Henny. So stick around, because this one's going to be a lot of fun.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Hello, John. Thank you for joining us on the show today. So good to have you. Real privilege, I have to say, to have you on the show. Thanks for your time.
Same. It's a privilege to be here.
Yeah, it's I have known of you, John, for a number of years. Let's just put it a number of years, because I see, but first through Facebook, because you are active on Facebook, it has to be said, and then different people, different pedagogues from all over the world had mentioned your name, and so I sort of started to follow a bit of your stuff, and you are prolific in your production of courses and books and so much stuff. How did you tell us a bit about John Henny? How did you get into this singing thing, and just create a bit of a character profile, if you will?
Sure. Well, first I have to congratulate you on your upcoming course and hitting your deadlines, because that is not easy to do.
It's not easy.
It's not. It's really stressful. To me, you think that launch day is like the most exciting. And to me, it just feels like, oh, because you just think of all the things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
And I know, it's yeah, just to orchestrate all the moving parts to get them to all play together is, yeah. But anyway, we
Yeah,
seem to have done it
very
again.
good. So my
Thank you.
history, so I took a very bizarre, circuit. Oh, I can't even say the word. Like a drunkard's walk to teaching singing. I was born into a musical family. My father was very musical. He was from Glasgow, Scotland. But when I would do my early attempts at singing, he would say to me in his booming Glaswegian voice, "That's bloody terrible." So I started playing drums originally, and I actually studied with some amazing drum teachers, played drums professionally from my late teens, actually through my 20s. But in my early 20s, I thought, I should give this singing thing another shot because I could probably get more gigs if I was singing backup vocals, etc. And I found that I really, really enjoyed it. And not only that, my teacher started encouraging me to teach. And so I just slowly began to take on students and went, wow, this stuff kind of works. At first, I didn't know why things worked. They just worked. And then as I listened and paid attention, I really started to become fascinated with vowels and why some vowels were easier to sing and other vowels were harder to sing, why you could go higher with some vowels and not as high with other vowels. And so I really started to look into acoustics. And I went to a symposium, and Dr. Donald Miller was lecturing. And I was completely lost, but I knew I have to learn this. And I just remember when I first started reading about these things and acoustics and harmonics and formants, I'd read a paragraph and have to go take a nap. It can become... It's a little tricky to understand at first, but I knew that if I could understand it well enough to explain it to others, then I'd really start to get a handle on it. So I just love teaching singers and other voice teachers about this stuff.
While you're talking there, I went and grabbed, so this is Donald Miller's book, Resonance in Singing. and I can I admit to you, I think I've had to read this twice through to even try to unpack it's for a person that I came into the world of voice teaching through the biomechanical muscular era of the 90s, and this is a completely, I mean, can you remember when this book was first published? I'm quickly looking in here. 2008.
Okay.
2008. So, and it's really been in the last 10 to 15 years that acoustics and resonance and all that sort of stuff has really started to come into its own, hasn't it? In the teaching studio.
Yes, it's kind of moved from, and the book I got of his was the book before that one, which was written for other voice researchers. So it was even denser. And so I was completely lost. But it's true, it's moved from these brilliant minds who are much more intelligent than I am, and then there have been intermediaries like Ken Bozeman has written, brilliant books, and also just he's so giving of his time and speaking, and then it starts to make sense more to people like me. And so it's trickled down, and just also the application of it and how it can actually be useful for the singer, and having a basic understanding of how resonances in the vocal tract work, and actually what a vowel is, and why vowels really become a controlling mechanism to help you registrate your voice and to smooth out these vocal breaks and reduce strain and all of these things, and also increase power. It's very powerful.
Yeah, and I think when people do think of resonance, they very understandably and rightly associate acoustics and resonance with the color of tone and the timbre, but of course it's so integral to our dynamics, the manner in which how we project, and not using effort to create, volume, but really working with the sound to develop those those aspects of it. I mean, it really it's surprising that like a book like this is 2008, like, because we say it's really only become a big thing in the last 10-15 years, but actually acoustics and resonance has been integral to voice forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's what the masters were controlling way back, all these different vocal exercises and just the way that they would utilize vowel and consonant combinations. And it just plays into balancing these acoustics that now we can see, oh, that's why they were doing this. This is what they heard, and they figured this out without knowing exactly what was going on. But I kind of view all of this voice science stuff as more like the old Where's Waldo books. And, when you're first looking for Waldo, all you just see is red and white, red and white. And then understanding how your voice works is kind of like finding Waldo in that picture. And once you've seen Waldo, your eye can go right to him. And once you understand more what's going on in your voice, your ear can more quickly figure out what's going on, why it's happening, and then you can more accurately ask the question, how do I adjust this?
Yeah. It's interesting you use the Where is Waldo illustration, because I often think of there's a great Seinfeld episode of where they've got that picture where you look, you've got to sort of unfocus your view of that picture, and something, and the space, in this instance it's a spaceship and a planet and everything, and it jumps out at you. It's a very funny Seinfeld episode. But I find that resonance for the singer that's looking to develop their voice and their resonance can be like that. You've got to go in search of it and sit back from it. And a bit like Where's Waldo? Once you find Waldo, it's almost like you can't unsee Waldo, and it can be the same with that picture where you have to play with things to find that position. But once you've got it, it's a bit like, throwing a third metaphor, it's a bit like riding a bike. You find that balance point and away you can go. Do you find the same thing with your students?
Absolutely. And I think once a singer understands that there's not just a single resonance in the vocal tract, there are actually multiple resonances, and the one that tends to get us in the most trouble is the lowest resonance. And that resonance kind of has two levers to it. And you can raise the value of that resonance, how it's interacting with the sound wave, by spreading the lips and making the mouth wider. And then the other way is by constricting the throat. And that resonance causes a lot of singer problems because we really kind of get locked into it in our lower register. And as we go to sing higher, we start to track the pitch with it. And so in order for that resonance to stay in its relationship with the pitch, what do? We start to constrict the throat and we start to widen the lips. And what is that? That's shouting. And so voice teachers will very quickly start to have you, when you're getting that condition, whatever you want to call it, a register violation, pulled chest, etc.
Register. You violated the register.
You violated the register. I've seen it called that. Register violation. And, but you quickly figure out, hey, if I relax the throat, if I let the larynx stabilize or even drop a little bit, and if I round my lips, it stops that resonance from chasing the pitch.
Yeah.
Now, if we go too far, that resonance will drop a little too low, and then we get this falsetto effect, which we can use to great effect when we want it, but when we don't want it, it manifests as like a vocal crack or a flip. So learning to control that first resonance and just knowing, whoa, I can move this up a little bit and I can get a more intense belty sound, or I can bring it down and get a softer, almost headier sound without going to the yell or completely going to a falsetto.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great clip that I haven't shown students for a little while. Just, you know, how you get out of the habit of using particular teaching tools. But there's a great clip on YouTube of Celine Dion singing live. This is back in the era of live singing from the I think it was the 92 Atlanta games or something. Anyway, it was either the opening ceremony or the closing ceremony. Anyway, she's singing da 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 da. I forget the name of the song, but she gets to the end. There's this great front shot of Celine singing the end note, and you can see her managing this last note and just massaging, molding, managing this note with her mouth. And I often use it to show that, you know, not only is she managing the tone, because it's a big last note, Celine Dion, what would you expect? But, and it's so worth a view, everyone, but she's also managing pitch. She's managing the way the pitch is being, you know, maintained, because pitch is never a set and forget. What have you found? Because we you know, in a number of textbooks we'll find that people talk about that the 2 points of pitch management for a singer. What are you generally instructing your singers in the way they manage and mold that resonance to also influence pitch?
Yeah, because when you get, so what she's doing, really, I haven't seen it, but listening to you describe it, she's tuning the vowel.
Yeah.
She's making micro adjustments in the vowel, which is often our best control mechanism for resonance. I mean, when you are talking, when you're moving from oo to a to e, what you're doing is you're actually moving the resonance values around in your vocal tract, and they're bringing out different parts of the sound wave that we perceive as different vowels. When you get this resonance alignment in an optimal condition with the sound wave, you get this boost of energy that not only goes out to the listener, but it also travels back down to the vocal folds and helps them resist the air. So Celine is not only able to keep that pitch, but she's able to get a better tone, she's able to get more vocal energy, and she's able to stabilize the whole mechanism so she doesn't have to work too hard. Yeah,
it's such a good watch, everyone. I encourage you. I mean, the whole video is well worth a watch. Watching a highly skilled singer, you know, really manage her craft live, which we don't get to see as much these days as we used to. Yeah, it's quite magnificent. On that point of different vowels, John, let me just come to a question that Mackenzie's asked in our chat. And she said, I find the E vowel is harder to sing higher than other vowels. It just sounds so shrill and yucky when I sing E vowels. Maybe Dr. Dan and John can explain why that is.
So on an E vowel, what creates the vowels? If you think about resonance, so resonance is, as the sound waves are bouncing around in our vocal tract, certain frequencies will actually hit the lips and go out into space and almost echo back, just because of the way that they hit in their cycle. It's almost like a wave hitting a wall, and they'll start going back and forth, and so you get this excitement, and then other sound waves around them get very excited. So we have these resonances, multiple resonances. On the eval, the lowest resonance is very low, but the higher resonance, the next resonance, is really high. So you have the greatest distance between the two resonances are on an eval. The other problematic vowels we tend to have are oo. Now you have both resonances, they're close together, but they're both low. And then a vowel like ah, you have the resonances closer together, but they're both very high. So probably in your singing, I'm going to guess a more neutral vowel like is easier to sing, because those resonances tend to align with sound waves better. And what you can do is just play with singing the and then start moving your tongue just enough to bring in the E perception and stop. Don't go all the way to a spoken E. The problem with a spoken E is really the tongue is so far forward that what it's doing is it's making the space of the mouth resonator really small, and it's making the throat resonator really long, and it's just creating resonances that aren't aligning with your sound wave as well. So kind of pulling vowels, they kind of want to gravitate as you're getting in through your transition into your upper register. If you think of pulling everything a little more towards the position, so rather than saying I will always love you, it's more I will always love you. And you'll start to find more of a balance.
So we're starting, I guess, in that instance, to start talking about, the morphing or molding of vowels to assist the voice to move through, its register transition so that it can work evenly across range. How much do you use in your teaching and instruction? How much do you work with vowel modification with your students?
Constantly, until they reach the point where the vowel modification actually becomes more passive. So in the beginning, the vowel modification may need to be a bit more deliberate, because what's going to happen for most singers when you're first trying to sing, as you're moving towards those pitches, you're going to want that lower resonance is going to want to rise. And the way you're going to make that go up is by constricting the throat and widening the mouth. And so we tend to get, the ma, 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 ma. So if we narrow, boop, 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 we'll more easily find our way in there. And it's going to stop that yell mechanism from kicking in. Yeah. And then you'll be able to, okay, I actually can live with this shift in the sensations, this shift in dominant resonance, because it feels unstable. It creates this instability. And when we first feel that, our reaction is to just grab at anything we can. It's like we just got on ice skates and, I don't feel the same connection with the ground. So I'm flailing, I'm grabbing for the rails.
Yeah. Love it. Thomas has asked a question. It's a great segue question. He's actually asked, "Are you a baritone?" So I'll let you respond to that yourself to nominate your voice type, and then we can maybe talk about the way different voice types find themselves managing, their vowels and registrational management, what have you. So. We'll start with answering Thomas's inquisition.
Yeah. You know what? With my voice, that's a great question. Because the different teachers I go to and as I sing, I tend to be, I think I'm more of a baritenor.
A baritenor?
Yeah. So, but, having this bigger voice, I've really got to stay on top of this voice or it gets away from me quick because it's a bit of a bigger voice. I mean, I'm 6'7". I don't look that tall on your little computer, but I'm pretty tall. So, and voice type is not just the size of your vocal folds. It really has a lot to do with the length of this resonance tube, right? So you can get people who aren't as tall, but they have lower voice types.
Yeah.
And you can get, I mean, it tends to follow, the size of a person will tend to dictate their voice type, but not always.
No. And, I mean, I'm envious of you as a baritone. I think baritoners have almost got the best of both worlds. You're able to sing wonderfully high, but you're able to also, explore those, really rich colors and it's a funny thing around voice types, Thomas. We always want what we don't have ourselves. It's always a case of wishing we were something that we are not, instead of really leaning into what you are. 6'7", John. You could have gone into basketball.
If I could have played with her, darn yeah. I did try and play American football when I was in high school, and ended up with my leg busted up so bad I went, I'm sticking with music.
Right, and your Scottish background would have had you doing either football, like soccer, but then you'd be at 6'7", you'd be all arms and legs, wouldn't you? Like
exactly. I don't think it'd be an advantage there.
Your center of gravity would be just sitting a bit.
Exactly. Well, I've recently moved closer to the coast, and I thought I'll take up surfing, and I realized, man, 6'7" popping up on a surfboard is not the same as someone who's 5'7".
You'd be able to see out over the sets, right, of the waves rolling in, though.
So my surfing adventure has thus far been a disaster.
Oh dear. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's talk a bit more about voice types, though. How do you find the different voice types are able to manage, their resonance strategies? Do you find a difference between male and female in the way they, manage acoustics and resonances of their voice?
Yeah, and I mean it's almost individual to the person, because everyone's vocal tract, we take people who have similar voices and we'll classify them as, okay, tenor, baritone, mezzo. But as you know, in classical music, those classifications become even more refined. So you have a lyric tenor, or you have primarily a Wagnerian heroic Helden tenor, which is, their top note is going to be an A as opposed to, the high C. But each person, the math of the sound wave that we are sending in terms of, here's the pitch. Well, pitch is the same for everyone. Yep. If you're singing an A440 and a tenor singing an A440, the vocal folds are opening and closing at the same rate. The harmonics occur at the same intervals, but the tube that it's going through is different. And so the adjustments that you have to make to create these optimal relationships, some people have to maybe tweak that tube a little more than another person.
Yep. Yeah. And it's that non-linear you gave reference to earlier. It's that non-linear relationship in how we not only have that forward flow of air, but we also have a backward flow that then is placing its own relationship against the vocal folds and the manner in which they are able to oscillate at that continuing 440 hertz. It's interesting, as I was sharing to you prior to the show going live, that we've recently had floods here in my local area, record-breaking floods, terrible, and we're on flood warning again right now because we are being hit by heavy rain again. But in watching the flow of a swollen river and the way so we had really bad floods 10 years ago, 11 years ago, in fact. And places that flooded then haven't flooded this time, and places that flooded this time didn't flood back then. And it's all driven by the change in infrastructure. Different bridges have been built in different places, and that then has had an impact on the way the river flows. And it is the same, isn't it, for our vocal tract? It's where we place, where the tongue wants to sit on particular vowels, and how the soft palate sits, the width of the pharyngeal space, the position of the lips. Talk us through that in a little bit more detail, if you could, John.
Yeah, so, the way I view vowels, and when I'm working with students, I get this concept from Ken Bozeman, but this idea of, the undervowel and the overvowel. It's quite fascinating when you are moving from oo to e. The e still has oo in it, but you're just now boosting. Oo doesn't have a lot of high frequencies in it, and then when we tweak it, the tongue moves to e. It suddenly boosts these higher frequencies, and so now the ear is perceiving e, even though oo is still there. When we create a sound wave, the spectrum of vowels is in there, especially on the lower notes. All the vowel sounds are available to us. We're just using this as a filter. And you bring up the tongue. I've talked about the throat and mouth, but when you are tuning vowels, the tongue becomes really, really important. And the tongue really becomes this tuner of the next higher resonance. The throat is a little more associated with the lower resonance, a little more associated with chest voice. It's not exactly how it works, but of course we're a human being wrapped around this, and we have our perception of what's going on as we absorb these energies into our body. And then the tongue is kind of boosting these higher frequencies, and what you're doing is you're really coordinating the movement of your larynx, your jaw, your lips, your tongue. All of these things you can even tweak, as you talked about the pharynx, and you can get little tweaks in there to bring out more twang. And of course you can't be thinking about all this when you're performing, but when you're in lessons and working with a teacher who's guiding you through, move that a little bit. You feel how that's easier. What you do is you start just training yourself to feel when you're in the energy pocket, when you're in that tuned vowel. And so rather than thinking I've got to move my tongue, I've got to move my larynx, you just move yourself into the light. That's ultimately where you want to be. And you listen to great singers. Let's say somebody does a run, let's say on an ah vowel, from a high note, they move it down into their lower register. Listen closely. That vowel's going to change as they move. It's not the same vowel top to bottom. They're controlling that vowel. They're usually not thinking in that way. They're just thinking about, I'm just riding that pocket of energy, and they're making the adjustments to stay in that flow of energy.
I dropped my kids off to school this morning, as I do most mornings of a week, and the song of choice this morning, they have what's called the listener DJ or something, where the listeners get to call in and around a particular topic. This morning, I forget what this morning's topic was, but I do remember the song was a Whitney Houston, "I'll Always Love You," and just listening to the way I was listening to two things, because knowing that we're going to have this conversation, listening to the way Whitney managed her vowels, and you can hear her, modifying the vowel. It's stylistically perfect. It was Whitney Houston. But also the way, some people get so hung up on, but I want that note to be, let's just use the common vernacular. I want that to be chest voice, but I'm wanting it to be right up here. But then you go and listen to a Whitney, and she's throwing, falsetto / flute notes up there. She's making all these stylistic choices because she's not held to any, right or wrong. She's just making aesthetic choices, and she had a wonderful capacity to manage her voice towards an aesthetic end. And I guess, you know, that's at the end of it all, that's ultimately what we're in search of, isn't it? We are looking to be able to make choice for voice and resonance strategies, acoustic strategies. That's what it's all about in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful example of somebody who was just so in control of their voice, and she could walk her voice to the edge of what some singers would go, you know, some voice teachers may go, oh, no, don't go there, because she would almost be on the edge of shouting, but it was controlled. You know, usually when we shout or if we're over wide with the vowel, our vocal folds, it will signal to us to start clenching at the vocal folds. But when Whitney would do it, she wouldn't experience the tension here. So she had this wide range of resonance strategies. And particularly on that song, if you listen to her when she goes, I, so the first I, when she really belts it, it'll be a straight tone. It's really on the verge of almost falling out, right? And then she flips to the E, and when she comes back, suddenly you hear vibrato. And if you listen, the vowel has moved from a little more towards
Yeah.
And she's warmed that vowel up a little bit. So the vowel's more in your face, and then the vowel pulls back.
It's exactly,
you know, on the same word.
Yeah, it's exactly the example I was thinking of. When I heard her do it, I went, wow, you know, like she's not hiding it. Like what she has made it into is this stylistic feature, you know, and I think so many of us are so scared to, you know, reveal these strategies, but actually there it is in plain sight, plain hearing. I, you know, ba-da-da.
Yeah.
Just
And
beautiful.
she would, you know, she had these belts where she's almost like a tenor.
Yeah.
Where, you know, like she would keep the larynx. She'd get these really deep, you know, the larynx would drop. So what it's doing is it's making this tube longer.
Yeah.
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 So she starts to really get this richness in there. And then she starts really opening the mouth to bring in more of that brightness and that intensity. And so she's got both of those going on at the same time. I mean, her belts are just, they're thrilling. They're not shrill. They're not thin. They're just so rich and so full.
And yet, do you know what? I get the sense, I mean, I'd have to go back and listen to this again, but you get the sense that the settings that she is using when she's really peaking the song, where the song's really reached its climax, its apex, that the flow, the phonatory threshold flow is exactly, it wouldn't be if we were to scientifically read it, but it's in keeping with where she starts. And then that song, it is a intimate, close, really connected, you know, it's really quiet, but yet you can hear this, there's this sameness across, regardless of, you know, whether she's full tilt or you know, right up close and intimate.
Yeah, and you bring up that word, you know, talking about the phonation threshold pressure. How much work does it take to get the vocal folds vibrating? And when you have that good resonance and when you have this feedback of energy, it drops how hard you have to work to get the vocal folds buzzing.
Yeah, it's about, we often talk here on the channel, and it's about, for contemporary vocals, it's often about reducing that PTP, phonatory threshold pressure, but maintaining an equilibrium of phonatory threshold flow. And that's right there. That's the challenge. Is to find that you know, balance. Now, I've just looked down at the time, and as is always the case here on the show, we are coming towards the end of the show. But I got a question on Facebook. Now, I don't answer a lot of questions on Facebook, everyone. If you want a question answered, you're best to, well, that's not true. In our Facebook community, the Voice Essentials community page, I answer questions, but not sort of directly to, in this case, this was a question I answered. it was a question, and I'm keen to hear your answer to this, John. It was a question around the difference between, because we're talking resonance, acoustics, the difference between twang, which is very much a Joa Still term, but has made its way into the common vernacular of contemporary vocal. The difference between twang and singer's formant, and I responded with a Johann Sundberg quote where he differentiates between the two. What are your, and the person was asking about the difference in the formation, more at a mechanical level. What is your understanding around that? This is a question without notice, John, so I'm sorry if I've put you on the spot.
Yeah. That's actually a really good question, and it's something I'd personally I should probably go dig into a little bit more. I haven't really thought about it. I believe the singer's formant it tends to be the larynx is a little bit lower than you often get with twang.
That's my understanding. My understanding is that twang is formed within the epilaryngeal space, immediately above the vocal folds. There's a narrowing of the aryepiglottic sphincter, and so we get this the addition of the clear focused resonance of twang is added immediately above the vocal folds, whereas, as you just said, singer's formant tends to be a slightly lowered larynx, a slightly wider pharyngeal wall, and as a result, that resonant point sits higher than where twang is added, and therefore we get kind of a different quality. Often classical singers will refer to it as ping, and it is that very thing that enables that human acoustic to be heard over a full orchestra. It's a fascinating. Yeah. It goes to show just how wonderfully complex this instrument is that we are using. It
is, and I mean, we don't even know, to my knowledge, we're still not exactly sure what vibrato, how that happens in the body. We're not even exactly sure how harmonics occur within the human voice. Yeah.
No, that's it's. I am interested to hear you say that, because that is my current understanding is that I've probably as recently as a week ago I was saying to a student, we still don't actually know how there are theories, but there are schools of thought that not conflict against each other around vibrato, but everyone has a slightly different take on how is the human voice creating this thing called vibrato. I've got a vibrato exercise in my Voice Essentials 3 grouping of audio, but I purposefully, very intentionally called that exercise exploring vibrato, because it's such a challenging thing because we don't actually know how we do it. So it's quite a difficult thing to then directly teach. We can explore it and experience it. We know that the vibrato comes about when the voice has a great sense of, mechanical freedom. But have you found, I've found that even when I've had a few students over the years, even when their voice is beautifully free, mechanically free, for whatever reason, vibrato still doesn't seem to come about. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, because as a teacher, you hear the voice starting to come into balance. Like, okay, the vibrato's going to come, the vibrato's going to come. And with some students, it just doesn't. What I'll tell students is if they're having trouble with vibrato, I find that it's really aligned within the nervous system and our emotional center, and it's kind of this tremor. So this is not vibrato, right? Move your hand back and forth and then just feel this shake. It's more akin to that.
Yeah.
And you can just begin to get that nervous voice, and just kind of feel that. You can't do vibrato if you're kind of locked up or low energy. You really want to kind of get everything going to get that spin going.
Yeah. It's a fascinating area, and it really speaks. We'll have to come to a close in a second, it really speaks again to, we say this, everyone, you hear me say this infinitum on this channel, we still don't know everything there is to know about the human voice. And to be honest, I don't know whether in my lifetime we will. It's this fascinating instrument. I think it's in part the reason we'll never know all there is to know about the human voice is because every single voice is unique. There is. It is. Yes, there are, we all have a larynx, we all have vocal folds, we all have an epiglottis, a tongue, soft palate, hard palate, for the most part, aside from, abnormalities. But all of those, when we combined all those together into an individual, they're so unique, so different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. John, I knew we would have a wonderful conversation. We mentioned my course at the beginning of the thing, but you have such a variety of different courses on so many different subjects. Where can people find out more about yourself and check more stuff of what you've got on?
You know what? Best thing, just go to John Henny, JohnHenny.com. You can check out, I've got a few books that you can get on Amazon Kindle, and maybe check out my podcast, which I just had you on, just came out. Yeah, thank you for that. And you can find out more about me and my approach, and I talk to interesting voice educators on that as well.
Yes, you do. And I'm not just saying that because I had the great privilege of coming on, but the depth and breadth of people that you've had onto that podcast is outstanding, and it really speaks to just the level and of your expertise, John. That there are so many pedagogues from across the world who I think it's not unreasonable to suggest are very super keen to be on your show, to be associated with what you're doing, because it's just fantastic. And I've really enjoyed our chat today. I've just seen a comment here from two comments, one from Kelly, and she said she needs to watch this show a few more times. It was really interesting. And then David has said, this is the best Dr. Dan's live stream I've had the pleasure to see. So grateful. And so that's in a lion's share of that goes to yourself, John. Thank you very much. And
now, what he's not saying is this is the first one he's seen.
No, I don't think he's saying. No, he has been very specific. But look, it's been great to have you on the show. And have you got any final thoughts that you want to leave us with?
You know what? What's beautiful about this instrument is even if all of this science stuff doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't have to. If you connect with this, because we control this instrument through experience and through vibration and through emotion. And so don't lose contact with that. All of this voice teacher stuff is not the highest level of singing. Communication is. That's where touching people right here with your voice, that's what's important.
There you have it. You hear me say those exact words on this channel, like you're probably sick and tired of it hearing it, but I'm going to keep saying it. Singing is not about perfect notes. Singing is about communication. Exactly what John just said. John, thank you for coming onto the show. It has been such a privilege for me to have John. When I say John is highly respected, I say that with no word of a lie, no guile. So many people across the planet, are often referencing John or sharing his material. I highly recommend his podcast to you. And The Intelligent Vocalist, if I'm not mistaken, is what it's referred to. That's it. And so I'd encourage you to jump on, have a look at that. The links are in the description section below. Very quickly, a quick reminder, if you do want to grab a $50 discount to the new course. You've got less than a week to do that. And keep an eye out. For those of you who have already got it, keep an eye out. We might be able to go live before the launch date. You never, ever know. But I do look forward to spending more time with you next week when we will hang out again for a Q&A. So hit the subscribe button, hit the white bell icon so you get your notifications. And I very much look forward to seeing you again in a week. I hope you have a great week, a safe week. And we will catch up again soon when you'll hear me finish every show with, I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.